that's rather familiar music. It was composed by Louis Levy, and it became the theme music for the Gaumont British News that we used to see before the main feature of the movies. And what better way to welcome my guest tonight, Janet Lind, a former vocalist with Louis Levy. And welcome and thank you, Janet, for coming.
Thank you very much.
And you probably know how we came to hear of you, I suppose. It was one night when I played a recording of yours featuring you with Louis Levy, and we made some comments about it afterwards, and a listener phoned and said, I suppose you know that Janet Lind lives in Melbourne. That's how it all started. You've lived here for some years now, haven't you? Mm-hmm. But you're actually English originally?
No, Australian.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And but you were in England then for some time, or during these years?
Yes, a long time.
Yes. And prior to being known as Janet Lind, you were known as Reita Nugent.
That's right.
On the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps we can begin with one of the records that we've been featuring as a lead-up to this program. It's, I think, probably was one of your most famous records, Swing High, Swing Low. What would you think?
I don't know.
I think it was a pretty popular one at any rate. Here it is, Swing High,
we'll see.
Swing Low. There it was, Swing High, Swing Low. And Janet, you were saying to me that you actually preferred broadcasts to recordings.
Yes, because, you see, you did the whole program. But you had to do it all very quickly for the record.
Yes.
Get everything in 3 minutes.
You didn't get the sense of presentation that you'd get in broadcast. Mm-hmm. How long would the broadcast usually be for? Like, how long would a broadcast go on?
Oh, an hour.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I can see the presentation of a number of songs, and that you'd feel much more of a...
Well, you did your whole number. You presented, you see.
Yes, yes.
But here we just had to do that one chorus.
The broadcast would always be before a live audience?
Oh, yes.
Yes, well, there you get much more of the sense of presentation, wouldn't you? And I'm talking with Janet Lind, formerly a vocalist with Louis Levy and his orchestra, and we're featuring a number of your songs that you recorded with Louis Levy, Janet. But as we said earlier, prior to becoming famous as Janet Lind, you were Reita Nugent, star of the stage.
Yes, I was.
And that began, fairly early in your life here in Australia,
yes,
didn't it?
I was with the firm.
J C Williamson? Yes.
And I used to do pantomimes with a very small child, 3, 5, 6.
Is that right? The traditional pantomimes?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And then on to other things. What were some of the other roles or shows that you were featured
We're
in?
here in Australia?
Yes.
Oh, A Night Out. So This Is Love.
So This Is Love, yes.
I can't remember really all of them because I was so burning to go overseas.
Yes, yes.
And when I went over there, I went from Australia to Berlin.
Oh, I see.
Because I had to appear in a review in Berlin.
Yes.
And that, I would say about 9 months. And went over to London and appeared with Stoll. That's...
Yes.
Vaudeville.
Yes.
And from there I went into a show at Her Majesty's in the Haymarket with Gertrude Lawrence.
Oh, I see.
And, from there I went from one show to another.
Yes, that's right. Now, you came to a particular point, however, where, in fact, I'm delighted at the story you tell about how your singing career kind of began. You're mentioning about, was it Oxford Street or somewhere like that in London?
Well, I had been to America. And I appeared at a show which lasted 2 weeks. And I got very, very good notices.
Yes.
And from that was invited to go into a show that Ethel Merman was in with Trixie Gaynor.
Oh, yes.
And they were arguing apparently about the star bidding and what have you, and I was called in to take Trixie Gaynor's place.
Yes.
On Broadway. No deal, said Equity. Then I was going to sing, I was chosen by Eddie Cantor for his new production at the Paramount.
Yes.
Once again, Equity said no. An American girl can do this as well as Janet Lind. And Diana Shaw stepped in and got the spot. I went back to London full of singing.
Yes.
But my pals in London only knew me as a dancer in the theatre. And I thought, well, I'd love to sing, but nowhere to put it.
Yes.
One day it was raining in London, as a lot of times it does, and I went into Woolworths to get out of the rain, and we started singing, and the man was following me all the time, and I was getting very cross about this. And I was just going to say, would you mind going away, please? And she said, you've got a nice voice, miss. Do you think so? So I gave an audition up at the BBC, but I didn't tell any of my theatre friends.
Yes.
And in the middle of it, I got too nervous, and I said, I'm sorry. I'm begging at the knees. And I walked out.
Yes.
I gave another audition. And I took the name Janet Lind from a corset shop I saw in Bond Street.
That's the name Lind, actually, yes. The Janet part of it, where did that come from?
Oh, in America they used to call me Jane, Janie, Janet, what have you, and I just put that in front of the other one. And that's how I came Janet Lind, and nobody in the theatre knew, although I was broadcasting for quite a while.
And didn't really know that you were the same person as
They didn't know I was
Nugent.
me.
Well, how was that? Let's listen to another one of your recordings. This one is called Turning the Town Upside Down. Do you remember it? Here it is.
afraid. I'll be hanged if I know what to do. Life ain't worth living, it's misery. All is forgiven if you'll come back to me. I'm turning the sun upside down. Honey, I miss you so. Oh, how long must I go? Looking high, looking low for you.
There it was, turning the town upside down. I think you suggested to me, Janet, that you'd forgotten about that one. Is that right?
Yes, I didn't remember that. Out of the ages. One of my first, I think.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, there were quite a number to find. In fact, about how many do you think you would have recorded with?
Oh, dear. I have no idea.
No.
You don't think, you just, you rush up to there and you do that.
Yes.
You're too busy.
But certainly quite a number, I can, one can see that. But of course, there were other vocalists also that were featured with Louis Levy, I suppose some of them before you came along and sang with him, probably others
Yes,
afterwards.
Eve Beck. She was before me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Anne Lenner did
yes.
a few.
Yes.
They were all sort of, invited every now and again.
Yes.
But I was a resident one.
Yes, I see.
With to the BBC.
Yes. Now, the orchestra was quite a big one, wasn't it? About 65 pieces, I think, in the orchestra.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Was it a bit awesome standing in front, or was it a very great thrill for you to have such a large orchestra accompanying you?
I don't know, he just went up on the green and there it is. You just did it, You don't think.
No, I suppose that's true. A typical recording session, I'm talking about not the broadcast, but the recording. Would you have to go through a recording a number of times, to get the best take, or...?
Well, it all depends, the balance. If you set it, and there it is.
Yes.
Some people are very hard. Gracie Fields was very hard to get.
I see.
Because every time she did it differently. They never could get a balance.
Yes.
And I remember being in the studio at St John's one day, and Peter Dawson
Oh, yes.
was broadcasting. He's a character. And he stood up and he sang this, I forget what it was, but he put his own words to it, nothing to do with the song at all. And of course everybody in control going crazy. And he was saying some of the most dreadful things. Just for a joke.
Yes, yes. We were talking about Peter Dawson the other night.
Really?
He's a very great man, wasn't
nice
he? A very great,
yeah.
very great
nice
singer.
person.
Yes. And I think you mentioned too that some of the arrangements for Louis Levy were actually carried out by Peter York, who became famous.
He did all Louis' arrangements.
Yes.
And then he formed his own orchestra.
And became quite famous, yes, with his concert orchestra. As well.
Peter used to, he was a pianist with Jack Hilton.
Oh, yes.
And from that graduated up to doing arrangements.
We'll be back in just a moment. I'm wondering, Janet, whether, throughout the theatre or the amongst recording people and that, there was any way in which you were particularly known in those days, throughout Britain, Europe,
Yes.
What did people think of your voice?
I don't know what they thought of it. It's a silly question. But I was known, in the press and everywhere, as the girl with a smile in her voice.
Oh, well, I think that's quite right, too.
No.
It does have... your voice had a typically English sound. I mean, I know that you're Australian, but it did have... It was a typical English vocalist sound.
Really?
Don't you think that?
I never learned singing.
Is that right? You just sort of stood there and sang.
Sang.
What about your knowledge of music? Could you read music?
None.
Is that right?
And I nearly had a fit because my first broadcast was in an operetta,
Oh, yes.
Veronique,
Uh-huh.
and I had to play second lead.
Oh, yes.
And after the second audition I gave, apparently they thought there was a bit of a voice there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they dialed into the various producers, NBH,
Yes.
Broadcasting House,
Mm-hmm.
and then Stanford Robinson, who was, the big conductor bloke,
Yes.
came down, and he played the piano and kept taking me up to all different, I didn't know where I was.
No, that's right. High notes, yes.
And I apparently was doing top C's and what have you, which brought me to the operetta
Yes.
thing, and they invited me there. And it wasn't until after the second broadcast that they realised I didn't read music. Of course, they were all sweating, going mad, terrified. And I didn't know they were all terrified, of course.
Yes, yes.
Which is all right. Because the first rehearsal, I knew my entire role.
Yes, that's right, because you'd sort of
Well, I'm
practice...
used to theatre, you see.
Yes,
You
yes.
don't... so they were all reading from the score.
Yes, yes.
But you couldn't do that in the theatre.
Here's an epic that I'm sure you'll remember called Jingle of the Jungle. Do you remember it?
Oh, yes, I had my jingles all nicely set up.
Here it is. featuring Janet Lind in the studio with me, and of course, above all, we're featuring her singing on some of those great recordings of old. I've got one now that I want to play, Janet, called Looking Around Corners for you. Do you remember it?
You find me.
Do you remember the song?
Of course.
Yes. What would you think of it, amongst the recordings?
Me? Give an opinion of me? That's a funny one. Well, I think it's all right.
Yes.
I'll leave that to you.
I think it has a catchy
I'll pass the back to you.
tune. It comes from a show called Head Over Heels.
That's right.
And the song was actually by Gordon and Revel.
That's right.
Revel. Looking Around Corners for you. See what listeners think of it.
All right.
Smiling face of you, looking around corners for you. Think I'll tell the missing person bureau you're a person that I'm missing so. Why must I weep on the pillow I sleep on? Tell me, my darling, how long must I keep on looking around corners for you? It's raining though the skies above are blue, and the sun ain't gonna shine again until you say that you're mine again. Looking around corners, looking in windows, searching, waiting, hopeless, helpless, looking around corners for you.
Looking Around Corners for you, and I think that was a bright, pleasant song with a catchy tune.
Thank you.
There were lots of tunes around then that had that same catchiness. I suppose they'd come, originally from stage shows and, or perhaps for films?
Or for movies.
Ah, yes. But they had a
nearly all J C Matthews.
Ah, yes. And of course, yes, her particular, many of them, I suppose, were written for her, weren't they?
Oh, yes.
With her in mind. Now,
especially for her.
Yes. When you look back on those days, do you think the quality of songwriting was perhaps better than today? Do you ever make those sort of
contrasts?
I
think it was more melodious.
Yes. The melody was important.
And the words.
Yes.
They said something.
Yes. What were they, kind of escape songs, or were they true-to-life songs, or what? What did you think?
Escape? What from?
Well, I mean, from life itself, they were...
Oh, no, I don't think so.
No.
I'm just saying they made me happy. And I think a lot of people get a lot of the words. I mean, people who are lonely,
Yes.
unhappy.
Mm.
Like one broadcast, for instance, I did a song, something about birthdays.
Yes.
Now, everybody must have thought I was singing to them,
Yes.
wishing them a happy birthday.
That's right.
My mail was terrific.
Is that so?
Thank you so much. It was just as if you were wishing me. Now, the words do mean.
Yes. Well, that was real communication, wasn't
yeah.
it? That's so. We've featured in the program tonight a number of sort of what we call the single tracks. That is where you do the vocal chorus midway through the recording.
Yeah.
But a number of Louis Levy's presentations were actually medleys, weren't they? A selection of songs from a film.
For the...
For one of the shows.
For the record.
Yes, that's right. And in that case, you and perhaps a male vocalist may have had a chorus to sing on each.
No, we did the numbers completely.
Oh, yes.
We were featured in the broadcast.
Uh-huh.
But on the record, it had to be very fast.
A bit too quick, was it? Well, after this message, we're going to hear one of those medleys, which features you in the vocal chorus. And the selection that I have in mind is the selection called It's Love Again. So we'll hear how quickly you were able to present the vocal chorus in that. Shall we, Janet? Do you remember It's Love Again?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes.
On so many occasions.
Here it is.
That makes a bull and heifer feel just like an Aries ever breathe. Love is an effervescent drink that makes a Cockney coster think he's Viennese. It feels like spring again. I'll sing again and be just like a vine that has to cling again. So if I was poetic, be a little for it's love again.
was a selection from It's Love Again. And that was a delightful song, really. I think that the claim, that you were the girl with the smile and her voice, don't you think it comes through in that song?
Yes, I think it does.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty song, really.
Lovely.
Were you very serious while you were singing it?
Serious? We're joking. No. I had a funny hat on.
Is that right?
And I made lovely love to dear Louis,
As you were singing it?
Yes. Playing and just codding the whole thing. Having fun.
Yes.
It's one of those songs you just breezed along.
Yes, that's right. Delightful
it's very
song.
Nice.
A delightful song, really. Now, there were a great number of people, as we've mentioned earlier, who became famous in other ways, who I suppose were guests or who came in for a time into the Louis Levy organisation. Melachrino. George. Yes, that's right.
Sam Brown.
Sam Brown, yes.
Who else?
Well, there were, of course, the singers. I think of Evelyn Dove, Hazel Jeans.
Evelyn Dove. She used to sing with Ambrose.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm. A dance orchestra.
Yes.
She came one night, a guest. Who else? Anne Lerner.
Ah, yes. Well, she was very famous with Carol Gibbons.
Yes, she was. His vocalist.
Yes, apparently a delightful
charming.
person, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were quite a number of them, certainly. The male vocalist who was featured most with you was...
Robert Ashley.
And he was sort of a permanent...
Yes, he and I were.
Well, we'll be back in just a moment. And throughout this past hour, I've had as my guest in the studio Janet Lind, and we've been playing some of the delightful songs that she sang with Louis Levy's orchestra. But I suppose we have to reflect on the fact again, Janet, that all good things come close to the end. Yes. And there is another one of the wonderful medleys that I do want to play. And this one was called Sparkles, and I think you sing a song in it called Gangway.
I do.
So let's listen to that before we say goodnight. This is a selection from Louis Levy and his Gaumont British Symphony called Sparkles, and features Janet Lind singing Gangway. yes. Another delightful selection from Louis Levy and his orchestra. Well, Janet, what can I say except what a pleasure it's been for me to have you in the studio tonight. And enjoyed listening to your singing with you there.
Very much.
And I know that the listeners have appreciated very much your willingness in coming along.
And I hope to.
And perhaps we can have another visit?
I would love to.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. Janet Lind, the girl with a smile in her voice. Thank you again.
Thank you again.